In the third year of my long-distance marriage with Victoria, on our anniversary, I boarded a flight to Germany. During its descent, the plane suffered a bird strike and began to fail. The flight attendants, their voices choked with despair, instructed passengers to prepare final messages for their families. I frantically called Victoria over and over, but the line just kept ringing unanswered. Just moments before the plane crashed and exploded, I saw a new social media post from her secretary, a picture of Victoria, sound asleep. The caption was sickeningly sweet. "She took care of me all night and is only just now getting to sleep. I feel safest when you're by my side." After narrowly escaping death, I chose to let them be. But then Victoria panicked. Chapter 1. The number you have dialed is currently unavailable. Victoria's phone returned nothing but an endless busy signal. I clutched my phone in despair, pulling the oxygen mask down from the panel above my seat. A massive impact sent a wave of screams and cries through the cabin. I shut my eyes, gripping my seatbelt, ready for death. My dozen or so messages on WhatsApp had gone unanswered. My last exchange with Victoria was simply, "I love you, my darling." Today was supposed to be our third wedding anniversary. Just last week, she'd told me on the phone that she was too swamped with work to fly back and celebrate with me. To surprise her, I had secretly bought a ticket to Germany. But just moments ago, right before landing, the flight attendant's voice came over the intercom, trembling with tears. The plane had sustained severe damage from a bird strike. We were told to brace for impact and leave final messages for our families. No one grasped the gravity of the situation until the fuselage began to shake violently, and piercing alarms blared to life. Chaos erupted. I tried to stay calm and called Victoria. It rang twice before someone picked up. "Honey, listen, I'm in a situation." I was cut off before I could finish. The voice wasn't Victoria's. It was her personal secretary, Ethan Hayes. "Mr. Donovan, Miss Sterling is in a meeting, but He hung up. I immediately redialed, only to be met with that relentless busy signal. All around me, passengers were weeping as they spoke to their loved ones. I was weeping too, but I didn't even have the chance to say goodbye. I opened WhatsApp. Our last conversation was a week ago. She had said, "Busy, not coming back for the anniversary." Amidst the violent turbulence, my hands trembled as I tried to type her a message. The plane lurched violently as one of the wings caught fire. The screams of passengers, the booming explosions, the shrieking alarms. It was a symphony of terror that left me paralyzed with fear. I curled into my seat. In the next instant, a wall of fire rushed toward me. A massive explosion roared, and my hearing vanished. A wave of searing heat threw me from my seat. I tumbled through the air before slamming hard onto the ground. It felt as if my organs had been shattered. The pain was excruciating. Tears streamed down my face. My hand accidentally brushed my phone, and the screen lit up with Ethan's new social media post. The photo was of a woman sleeping soundly. It was Victoria. Maybe it was the physical agony, or maybe it was the realization that I was dying like a fool, clutching my phone, waiting for a response that would never come. A bitter smile formed on my lips. I tried to drag myself towards safety, but my legs were useless. Everywhere I looked, there was blood and dismembered limbs. I couldn't tell if parts of my own body had been blown off. I tried to scream for help, but couldn't hear my own voice. My body was drained of all strength. Memories of my years with Victoria flooded my mind, finally freezing on the image of Ethan's post. As I lay on the brink of death, Victoria was tangled up in bed with Ethan. On our wedding anniversary, on the day that was about to become the anniversary of my death, the pain from my body and my heart soon pulled me into unconsciousness. When I woke up, the hospital room was filled with doctors and strangers. Chapter 2. The blinding sunlight stung my eyes. Countless cameras were pointed at me. A doctor informed me that I was one of only 2 survivors of the plane crash. It was the 3rd day after the accident. The pain in my left arm was so intense it took my breath away. The doctor explained that my left arm had been severely lacerated by fuselage fragments and I might suffer permanent nerve damage, making it difficult to ever exert full strength again. Aside from a concussion and soft tissue contusions all over my body, there were no other serious injuries. I was the luckiest survivor of the disaster. You were here in Germany on vacation, right? Here's your phone. You should contact your family and let them know you're safe. The doctor handed me my phone. The screen was shattered, but it still worked. I had over a dozen missed calls, all from my mother. From Victoria, there was only a single message sent 3 days ago. Happy 3rd anniversary. I'm really busy, so we'll have to skip celebrating. I let out a soft, mocking laugh. Happy? What on earth made her think I would be happy? The relief and terror of surviving washed over me again, and tears began to flow uncontrollably. After composing myself, I dialed my mother's number. Sincere, honey, I saw the news about the plane crash in Germany. Are you okay? Hearing my mother's worried voice, I felt a wave of genuine love. The person in this world who would always love me, always wait for me, would never be Victoria. Mom, don't worry, I'm okay. I'll be back in a few days. I miss you so much. During my stay in the hospital, I refused all interview requests from the media. The day I was discharged, I took a taxi straight to Victoria's apartment in Germany. I didn't bother calling her. She wouldn't answer, and even if she did, she'd just say she was busy. Lying in that hospital bed, undergoing test after test, I had days to think. What was the point of a marriage like this? To Victoria, I had become completely disposable. While I was staring death in the face, she was in another man's bed, oblivious and indifferent. She didn't care about my life. In the 6 months she'd been away on business, we had barely spoken. I arrived at her temporary apartment, the very one I had helped her choose. I entered the code and stepped inside, immediately hearing the sound of a man and a woman laughing. In the kitchen, Victoria and Ethan were tasting something from a pot, their bodies intimately close. At the sound of the door, Ethan, wearing an apron, emerged from the kitchen. They both froze when they saw me. It was 3:30 on a weekday afternoon, and Victoria was not at her office. Ethan clutched a spatula, his expression panicked. Mr. Donovan, why didn't you tell us you were coming to Germany? Chapter 3. Us? I wasn't aware a secretary could now speak for his boss as us, and I, her legal husband, was now the outsider. I set down my bag and, trying to walk normally, sat on the sofa. Ethan, how much does Victoria pay you? Playing secretary and nanny must be exhausting, right? My words were for Ethan, but my eyes were locked on Victoria. Ethan stammered, his face flushing red as he shot a helpless look at Victoria. Victoria forced a light laugh. Sincere, why didn't you tell me you were coming? You must be tired from the flight. Let me go get a room ready for you. Her sudden attentiveness was laughable. I'm not tired. I've been in Germany for a week. You still haven't answered my question. Why's Ethan here? Victoria's voice grew colder. Ethan's lease was up, and his landlord wouldn't renew. He hasn't found a new place yet, so I let him stay here. Oh? Well, aren't you a considerate boss? Miss Sterling, she used work as an excuse to ignore me every day, while her husband nearly died in a foreign country. All the while, she was here playing house with her male secretary. It's hard to find a place here. It's also more convenient for work. Don't overthink it. I glanced around the apartment, which was filled with signs of them living together, matching mugs, his and her slippers, and even the fact that Ethan was wearing nothing but an apron over his bare chest. I'm not overthinking anything. I just didn't realize that when you said you were busy, this is what you were busy with. My pointed look at Ethan's attire left Victoria speechless. I watched her desperately defend her lover, completely oblivious to the bandage wrapped around my left arm. Even if she didn't care about me, I was standing right in front of her. The news about the plane crash was everywhere. Did it not once cross her mind that I might have been on that flight? If my arrival has disturbed you two, then I apologize. I'll be leaving now. As I grabbed my bag to leave, Victoria blocked my path, her voice tight with suppressed anger. Sincere, can you stop making a scene? It's not what you think between Ethan and me, and what is it that I think? Are you so sure you know what's on my mind? A man and a woman living together. Are you afraid I might get the wrong idea? Victoria finally snapped. That's enough, Ethan is just my subordinate. Don't be so nasty beside us. Ethan lowered his head, his voice trembling as if he were on the verge of tears. Mr. Donovan, please don't let me be the cause of any trouble between you. I'm just crashing here. Please don't misunderstand. I'll move out right now. It's no problem. With that, he rushed into a room to pack his things. Victoria and I were left in a standoff. Sincere Donovan, Ethan is just a kid who recently graduated, all alone in Germany. Have you no consideration for his safety by doing this? His safety? I cheated death to stand before you, and you never once considered my safety. Why on earth should I care about his? Ethan quickly packed his bag and emerged from the room, biting his lip as if he had been gravely wronged. Victoria frowned and moved toward him. Victoria, when that plane exploded in Germany, did you ever once consider my safety? I hadn't wanted to tell her, but in that moment, I hoped she would stop and show me some concern instead of chasing after Ethan. But I was wrong. I had overestimated my own importance yet again. Victoria paused for only half a second, then let out a cold laugh as if I'd told the world's funniest joke. There's a limit to this jealousy, you know. You're standing here perfectly fine, aren't you? I'm going to help him find a hotel. We'll talk when I get back. Chapter 4. Watching Victoria's retreating back as she hurried after him, I lost all will to be angry. Having survived a life and death disaster, I felt a terrifying calm. What was a laughable romance in the face of mortality? The moment I opened my eyes in the hospital and realized I was still breathing, I understood that I had wasted the last 30 years of my life. Before seeing Victoria, I had clung to a sliver of hope that she still loved me. Now I felt that fate had given me a second chance. My world should revolve around me. I immediately booked a ticket on the earliest ferry back home and contacted Miss Jennings, our family lawyer, to inquire about divorce proceedings. I sent Victoria one last message, "Let's get a divorce," then snapped my SIM card in half and tossed the shattered phone. Thrown into the sea along with it was my broken, fragmented marriage to Victoria. After a full day and night of travel, I was finally home. I say home, but it was really just a house where I lived alone. The sprawling space held few traces of Victoria. Exhausted, I dropped my luggage and drew a hot bath, washing away the grime and misery. Around 4 or 5 in the morning, I heard a sound at the front door, but I was too tired to open my eyes. When I woke up again, it was past 9. I walked out of my room and was surprised to see Victoria on the sofa. She looked like she had rushed back from Germany overnight. There were dark circles under her eyes. "Sincere, you're awake." Victoria immediately got up from the sofa to greet me. "Why weren't you answering your phone?" Wearing my bathrobe, I went straight to the kitchen and poured a glass of warm water. The long sleep had left my mouth dry. After downing half the glass, I finally spoke. My phone was destroyed in the plane explosion. Only then did Victoria seem to notice the gruesome wound on my left arm. "Are you telling the truth?" She frowned, staring at me. Her question was so absurd I almost laughed. "What? You think I made it all up just to compete with Ethan for your attention?" No wonder she had been so determined to chase after him last night. She clearly didn't believe a word I'd said. Victoria's expression grew uneasy. "I told you, there's nothing going on between Ethan and me. It's all a misunderstanding." She opened her arms to hug me, but I stepped away in disgust. She still smelled of Ethan's cologne, a scent so nauseating it made me sick. I sneered inwardly. My wife, upon learning I had survived a major explosion, wasn't concerned about my injuries or my well-being. Instead, she was scrambling to explain her relationship with another man. I put down the glass, my tone cold. "It doesn't matter. You're back, which means you got my message. Whatever your relationship with him is, I want a divorce. Sincere, I understand you've been through a lot these past few days, but please, don't take it too far. Do you have any idea how worried I was last night when I got back to the apartment and you were gone? I called you, and you wouldn't answer, worried about me. Where was she when I was dying in that explosion? So Victoria could worry about me after all. She even flew back from Germany overnight to see me. For the past 6 months, she hadn't even come back for the holidays. It was obvious she just didn't want to see me. Victoria sighed and carefully brought a bowl of porridge from the kitchen. In the past, she didn't even know how to wash rice. It seemed she and Ethan had a lot of fun in the kitchen during her time abroad. Eat something. I have things to do at the office. I hope you'll have sorted out your emotions by the time I get back. Whatever happened between us, you shouldn't take it out on Ethan. He's just my colleague. We've been together for so many years. I hope you can be more mature about this. I used to be the immature one, defying my family to marry a penniless Victoria. Now I had finally matured. I was willing to wake up from the dream I had built for myself and understand that all these years had been a mistake. After Victoria left, I went to meet Miss Jennings. Chapter 5. When I saw Miss Jennings at the steakhouse, I felt a bit awkward. After all, she was the same lawyer I had hired years ago to threaten my family with disownment when I was hell-bent on marrying Victoria and no one else. She handed me a file with the divorce-related documents. The other procedures are straightforward, but the investment in her company must be withdrawn. Otherwise, it will be difficult to separate your finances. Her eyes held a mix of concern and doubt, as if she didn't quite believe I was serious about the divorce. It made sense. 5 years ago, as an intern at my family's conglomerate, I had the chance to attend a major business conference. It was there that I met Victoria, who was struggling to get her startup off the ground. Back then, her eyes burned with a passion for her dream. I was instantly smitten by this spirited woman and began to pursue her relentlessly. I stood up the heiress I was supposed to have an arranged meeting with and went to Victoria's tiny rental apartment to cook for her instead. When my father found out, I swore I would marry Victoria or no one. The news sent him to the hospital with a heart attack. From his hospital bed, he gave me an ultimatum. If I insisted on marrying a poor woman like Victoria, I would be cut off from the Donovan family. I immediately contacted Miss Jennings to draft the documents to sever ties. Back then, my world revolved around Victoria. No amount of wealth or privilege could compare to standing by her side through thick and thin. My mother cried as she watched me pack my bags and leave home. I didn't even give her a final hug. I got my wish and married Victoria. I helped her build her company, using my connections to navigate the business world. Victoria couldn't hold her liquor, so I took the drinks for her at countless dinners. We ended up in the emergency room together more times than I can count. On the first snow of the year, 3 years ago, we were stumbling back to our apartment when I shakily pulled a pair of rings from my pocket. "Victoria, marry me." The sudden proposal stunned her. She stared at my nose, red from the cold, for 3 seconds before nodding and accepting the ring. Looking back, Victoria was never the proactive one in our relationship. Even our marriage was something I had to beg for. But I was too foolish back then, my love a desperate, fawning thing. Later, her company Sterling Tech began to gain traction and establish a foothold in the market. She invited many partners and friends to our wedding. 3 days after the ceremony, her company received an anonymous investment of $30 million. She was ecstatic, grabbing me and kissing me wildly. She marveled that a major investor finally understood her vision, but I recognized the last few digits of the bank account on the transfer record. It was painfully familiar. I had seen Miss Jennings in a corner at the wedding reception that day. "Sincere, if you've thought this through, sign here." Miss Jennings' voice pulled me back to the present. She took 2 copies of the divorce agreement from her bag. I nodded and dialed my mother's number. "Mom, I've made up my mind. I'm getting a divorce. Please ask Dad to withdraw that investment. I'm so sorry for everything all these years." "Sincere," my mother's voice choked up on the other end of the line. "Your father's words were harsh, but he's always loved you. No matter what you've been through, this will always be your home." Then, my father's voice boomed through the phone. "Nonsense, that brat of mine marries when he wants, and now he wants a divorce when he wants? What am I, a decoration? He needs to come back and tell me this to my face." I wiped away a tear, a bitter smile on my face. Hearing his voice as strong and blustery as ever, I was relieved. He was still the same stubborn old man with a soft heart. When I got home that evening, Victoria was busy in the kitchen. The dining table was set for a candlelight dinner, a rare sight. This was her usual tactic. Whenever she made me angry, a single meal was all it took to win me back. It never occurred to her that it was only because I loved her that I forgave her so easily. Sincere, you're back. We haven't eaten together in so long. And this isn't takeout. I made it all myself. Victoria's voice was incredibly gentle. I sat down and glanced at the dishes without a flicker of emotion. Pushing aside the cutlery, I took out a pen and paper and said solemnly, "Here are 2 copies of the divorce agreement." I signed my name with a flourish in front of her and pushed the papers across the table. Your turn. Chapter 6. At my words, her hand, which was pouring red wine, trembled. The crimson liquid spilled onto the pristine white tablecloth. Her shocked gaze fell on my signature, then darted away 5 seconds later. She acted as if she hadn't seen the agreement I had placed right in front of her. "You must be hungry. Come, see what delicious food I've made." Victoria placed a plate of pan-seared prawns in front of me as if it were a precious treasure. "Your favorite prawns." I stared straight at her, holding out the divorce papers again. "You don't have to sign. In 1 week I'll be filing for divorce." Her hand holding the plate shook, and she slammed it down on the table. "Sincere Donovan, can't you see I'm apologizing to you? Just because I didn't pick you up when you came to Germany. You're going to be this cruel? Can you stop this nonsense?" Victoria demanded, her voice rising with emotion. Watching her lose her composure, I found it almost funny. She actually thought I wanted a divorce because she didn't meet me at the airport? In that moment, I lost all interest in continuing the conversation. I stood up to go to my room. "I made all this food, and you're not going to eat a single bite? There's a limit to your tantrums," she yelled after me as I reached the bedroom door. I gave a mocking smile and looked back at the table full of food: pan-seared prawns, garlic scallops, soy-braised sea bass. Ethan had certainly taught her a few things. "Victoria, I don't know whose favorite dishes these are, but I'm allergic to seafood." A flicker of panic and avoidance crossed Victoria's face. With that, I slammed the bedroom door, refusing to say another word to her. In the dining room, Victoria's phone rang incessantly, but she ignored it. It had to be Ethan. A few minutes later, Victoria burst into my room, holding her phone and demanding, "Sincere Donovan, are you seeing someone else? Who is this woman?" I saw the picture on her screen. It was me and Miss Jennings at the steakhouse that afternoon. I tapped the photo, and the screen reverted to her chat with Ethan. He had taken the picture and sent it to her. The most laughable part was her contact name for him, Ethan Baby. What right did a person like this have to question me? I handed the phone back to her and said coldly, "Isn't your Ethan Baby usually well informed?" That's the divorce lawyer I hired. While Victoria stood there, stunned, I put on my jacket and quickly left. Staying in that house any longer would only make me sicker. I drove back to the Donovan family villa. When I opened the door, I was surprised to see Miss Jennings. My mother hurried over to greet me. "Sincere, you're back just in time. Come, your father has prepared this agreement for you. Take a look." I took the file from Miss Jennings. It was a share transfer agreement for the Donovan Group. My father was turning the company over to me. My father walked down the stairs, his hands clasped behind his back. Well, I'm getting old. The business world belongs to you young people now. The company was always going to be yours anyway. Now that you're divorced, it's the perfect time to focus on your career. I knew my father was making this momentous decision because he was afraid I'd be taken advantage of by Victoria. A lump formed in my throat. I pushed the agreement back to Miss Jennings. "Miss Jennings, let's wait to sign this until after the divorce is finalized. It can't be considered marital property after all." That evening, my father withdrew the $30 million anonymous investment from Victoria's company. 2 days later, I went to the hospital for a follow-up on my arm and ran into Ethan in the lobby. His usual meek demeanor was gone. He grabbed my injured left arm tightly. "Sincere Donovan, you've tortured Victoria these past few days. She's a wreck since you don't care about her anymore. Why don't you just hurry up and divorce her so she can be free?" Ethan's grip was so tight my arm throbbed with pain. I didn't even have the strength to pull away. Let's get something straight. I've already signed the divorce papers. She's the one dragging her feet. She has 3 days left. If she doesn't sign, I'm filing with the court. You know what? You should persuade her. Otherwise, it's not fair to you, is it? Being a secretary who has to work his way into her bed. I looked at Ethan with cold indifference. I felt nothing for him, not even resentment. What nonsense are you talking? Ethan's eyes widened in panic. He glanced around at the passers-by, afraid of making a scene. People in the busy hospital lobby seemed to have caught a whiff of gossip and were straining to listen. Ethan wouldn't let go, still trying to argue, when suddenly Victoria called his phone. I rubbed my arm and headed for the orthopedics department on the 3rd floor without a backward glance. Faintly, I heard Ethan exclaim behind me. What? The investor pulled out? Chapter 7. I went back to the house to pack my things. Since Victoria was always traveling for work, she didn't have much in the house to begin with. As I packed, the house became eerily empty. The enormous wedding portrait on the wall now felt like the ultimate mockery. I took the photo down, placed it in a metal bin, and lit it on fire. I couldn't take it with me, and I couldn't just throw it away. Burning it felt right. Just then, Victoria returned. She rushed in and threw her arms around me, burying her head in my chest. Sincere, you're all I have left. The mystery investor who gave us $30 million pulled out. The company, it's in big trouble. She held me tightly, her tone unusually gentle. I can give up the company, all of it. But please don't leave me. Didn't you always say you wanted a child? Let's have a baby, I sneered inwardly and gently pushed her away. A child? Wasn't she the one who killed our first one? In the first year of our marriage, Victoria had emerged from the bathroom holding a pregnancy test with 2 lines, her face ashen. I was overjoyed and gave her a huge hug, but she frowned and grabbed my hand. Sincere, the company isn't stable yet. This baby is coming at the wrong time. Please, listen to me. We're still young. We can have a child later when we have money, and we can give them the best life and education. When she saw me hesitate, she went to a clinic behind my back and had an abortion. Our child died by her own hand. Afterward, she looked so relieved. I, being naive, thought she'd had a miscarriage due to my lack of care and fell into a deep depression. And now she wanted to talk about having a child. It was too late. Victoria seemed to know what I was thinking, a look of shame on her face. Even though the company lost a huge amount of funding, our operations are stable. We can support ourselves with our own assets. We're in a position to give a child a better life now. She pointed at the empty house. You used to say the house felt too cold. We could take this time to redecorate. She excitedly pulled me by the hand toward the guest room. We can turn this into a nursery. The little one can play in here. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Victoria looked at me with pleading eyes, waiting for me to agree. The standoff hung in the air. Thankfully, a ringing phone broke the tension. She pulled out her phone and quickly declined the call. I saw the caller ID, Ethan. A few seconds later, my phone started ringing. It was Ethan. I answered and put it on speaker. Ethan's triumphant voice came through the phone. Sincere Donovan, is Victoria with you? I'm warning you, stop monopolizing her. Victoria is pregnant with my child. If you know what's good for you, you'll get out of the way and give up your position. As her husband and I held the phone, looked at Victoria with an indifferent expression, and noted the beads of sweat forming on her forehead. After hanging up, I finally spoke. Congratulations. It looks like your vision for a nursery can be realized very soon. But you'd better hurry. It'll take at least 6 months for the paint to air out after you're done decorating. I pointed to the divorce agreement on the table. She knew there was nothing more to say. Victoria's eyes reddened. Finally, with a trembling hand, she signed her name, according to Miss Jennings' professional advice, with concrete proof of Victoria's infidelity. I could have left her with nothing, but I didn't want to wait any longer. I had no interest in her meager assets. I took the signed agreement to Miss Jennings for review. After confirming there were no further disputes, I confidently signed my father's share transfer agreement. I never imagined, however, that the first order of business I would handle upon returning to the Donovan Group would be a visit from the chairperson of Sterling Tech, Victoria Sterling, who had discovered the identity of her mysterious benefactor and wanted to meet in person. Chapter 8. I declined the invitation to the business banquet my secretary presented, but she seemed troubled. "Mr. Donovan, President Sterling from Sterling Tech has been very insistent that you attend. She said if you don't, she'll come to visit you in person. Didn't she say her own funds were enough to support the company? Was she afraid she couldn't support herself and Ethan's child? How laughable. And my child with her was supposed to suffer with a mother on the brink of bankruptcy? I chose a very expensive but sharp suit. Pushing open the doors to the banquet hall, I saw many well-known figures from the business world. Several of them were partners whose deals I had secured over rounds of heavy drinking. The crowd's eyes were filled with anticipation, curious about the identity of the mysterious investor. When they saw it was me, they quickly averted their gazes, looking awkwardly at Victoria. They didn't know we were divorced. "President Sterling, you're hosting a distinguished guest. It's not very good for your husband to be late, is it?" one of them, a Mr. Wagner, remarked. Ethan, sitting next to Victoria, jumped in. "Mr. Wagner, Sincere, and Vicky are divorced." Seeing Ethan's smug expression, everyone understood the situation. Victoria shook off Ethan's arm and walked quickly towards me. "Sincere, you came for me, didn't you? You've come to your senses and want to come back to me, right? I knew you couldn't let me go. I can remarry you right away. Please, stop this game, okay?" I scanned the faces of everyone present. Under their watchful eyes, I pushed Victoria away and slowly walked to the empty seat of honor at the head of the table. "Victoria, I came because I accepted your invitation to a banquet, not to discuss our personal lives. But since you brought it up, you want to remarry me? Then what about the baby in your belly?" I sat down calmly. At the mention of Victoria being pregnant, the faces of the business leaders in the room changed. Everyone in our circle knew she had been on a business trip in Germany alone for over 6 months. Ethan became frantic, slamming his hand on the table and pointing at me. "Sincere Donovan, that seat is for the main shareholder of Sterling Tech. What gives you the right to sit there?" I swirled the wine in my glass. "Didn't you find out the major shareholder was from the Donovan Group? I'm sitting right in front of you. Is this how you help your boss negotiate with me, Secretary Hayes?" I put down my glass, my eyes glinting with amusement as I looked at Ethan. Everyone, including Victoria, finally understood who I was. Ethan clenched his fists in disbelief. Victoria pushed Ethan aside and, ignoring the strange looks from everyone, knelt at my feet. Ethan staggered backward. "Sincere, let's stop this. Come home with me. You should be careful, Miss Sterling. After all, you're carrying Ethan's child." I turned away, avoiding her sickening face. "The child? If you come home with me, I'll get rid of Ethan's child immediately. I'm begging you, Sincere. I can't live without you." The family drama was now public knowledge. No one could have imagined that the rising star of the business world, Victoria Sterling, was a promiscuous floozy who had cheated on her husband. I stood up, shook off her hand, and said sharply, "I came here today as a final courtesy to you. But your sincerity is lacking, Miss Sterling. Let me be frank, the Donovan Group will not invest another cent in Sterling Tech. As for the rest of you," I said, addressing the room, "you are all business associates. Victoria and I are divorced. Whether you continue to work with them is your own decision." Without a backward glance, I walked out. The partners whose business I had brought in followed me, shaking their heads as they left. I never saw Victoria again after that. Chapter 9. To better manage the company, I enrolled in an executive management program and threw myself into my work, barely having a moment to breathe. During my lunch break, I was munching on a sandwich while organizing my notes when an elegant lunchbox appeared in front of me. A sandwich alone won't give you enough brain power. The woman who spoke looked vaguely familiar. Seeing my confused stare, she smoothed down her exquisite dress. "What, you don't recognize me? I heard you stood me up on our blind date and turned around to marry some floozy from the wrong side of the tracks." "A blind date?" I studied her more closely and finally recognized her. She was Rosalind Rockwell, the heiress my family friend, Mr. Rockwell, had tried to set me up with. I pushed her lunchbox back toward her. "Are you here to laugh at me, Ms. Rockwell?" Rosalind scoffed. "What's so funny about divorce? You get married for happiness, and you get divorced for happiness, too." I was taken aback. I hadn't expected an heiress from a prestigious family to be so open-minded. That afternoon in class, I discovered that Rosalind was enrolled in the same executive program. She was nothing like the brainless socialite I had imagined, who only cared about clothes and makeup. Her business acumen was far more advanced than mine. "Of course it is," she said without a hint of modesty when I praised her at the graduation ceremony. "I didn't even go to that blind date. I flew to the States to get away from it all and spent 5 years studying there under the guise of just having fun. Eventually, my father officially handed the company over to me. After announcing his retirement, he and my mother set off on a trip around the world. Over the next year, the Donovan Group and the Rockwell family partnered, and our businesses flourished. I moved through the circles of high society business events. While my father's reputation opened doors, I discovered I had a natural talent for negotiation. As for Victoria, no one ever mentioned her in my presence again. It was as if she had never existed. Chapter 10. The day the Donovan Group was officially listed on the NASDAQ in the United States, I was ecstatic and had a few too many drinks at the celebration party. My secretary drove me home. As I staggered toward my front door, I lost my footing and fell into someone's arms. "Rosalind, what are you doing?" I shouted her name, my face flushing, trying to lean back comfortably only to find the embrace loosen. "Sincere, it's me," a once familiar voice whispered in my ear. I opened my eyes and saw her clearly. It was Victoria. The sight sobered me up instantly. She was disheveled, her clothes wrinkled. She looked nothing like the renowned young female entrepreneur she once was. She told me that after that fateful banquet, Sterling Tech couldn't secure a single investment. She had hoped to weather the storm with her own capital, but Ethan was a parasite, spending money wildly. He used her pregnancy to get her to buy him a car and a house, but he continued to smoke and drink throughout. When he was in a bad mood, he would sometimes get violent with her. In the end, Victoria gave birth to a child with cerebral palsy. The company was already in trouble, and now she had a child with a congenital defect. Victoria was overwhelmed, while Ethan did nothing but go out to party and argue with her. He was no help at all. One day, Victoria came home from the hospital with the baby and couldn't find Ethan anywhere. She later found out he had run off with a wealthy older woman, abandoning her with their 5-month-old disabled baby. Soon after, her company went completely bankrupt. She had no income and a sick child to support. Seeing her in such a destitute state, I thought back to the plane crash in Germany. As I lay on the brink of death, she was in Ethan's bed. Victoria's current situation was far better than mine had been. At least she had all her limbs. She wasn't going to die. She looked at me with a tentative yet sincere gaze. "Sincere, I know I was wrong. If it's possible, could you maybe—" Before she could finish, Rosalind's bright, cheerful voice called out from behind her, "Sincere Donovan." I turned toward the sound just as a cascade of fireworks lit up the night sky. Rosalind was waving at me, holding a bouquet of flowers. I ran to her with a smile and swept her into a huge hug. As the fireworks bloomed and faded in the sky, she pressed the bouquet into my hands. "Congratulations on the Donovan Group's successful NASDAQ listing today. Sincere, I was stuck in meetings all day and didn't have a chance to celebrate with you. You're not mad at me, are you?" I laughed and accepted the large bouquet of roses. She then reached into her coat pocket with a mysterious air and pulled out a small, exquisite box. She held up the diamond ring she had prepared and looked me straight in the eye. "Sincere Donovan, marry me after everything I had been through. I thought I would never have any desire for marriage again. But as this moment unfolded before me, tears began to stream down my face. So this is what it feels like to be chosen, to be truly wanted." My eyes red, I nodded and held out my hand to her. Rosalind carefully slid the diamond ring onto my finger. It was only then that I remembered Victoria had been standing there just a moment ago. I glanced back at where she had been, but the spot was empty. It didn't matter. Victoria's life had nothing to do with mine anymore. After Rosalind put the ring on my finger, I joyfully picked her up and spun her around twice. Looking at the incredibly happy woman before me, I knew only one thing. My future would be happier than I had ever imagined.